A Final Fantasy game in which all the men aren't dressed up in drag. Outlaws 2, or some other Sergio Dialone styled game. A ToeJam and Earl remake, with its early 90s rap music and all. More kid-friendly games. The market's expanding, either expand with it or die. Adult-only games. Again, the market's expanding, either expand with it or die. A Descent revival that'll bring that every direction madness to new gamers. More hot seat cooperative games. Doesn't anybody have friends anymore? Zelda, A Link to the Past, redone in 3D with next-gen graphics. More games that start off costing $20 and $30. An ironic Chuck Norris adventure game, but don't expect me to pay more than $30 for it. Final Fantasy Tactics for this generation of consoles. It was good then, it'll be good now. An RPG Shadowrun game, because it's not an FPS, it's an RPG. A racing game that allows you to destroy real-life cars, that is to say, if the companies ever allow it. The original Gone in 60 Seconds, all done up in a 70s motif. World of Warcraft, offline, possibly something along the lines of Oblivion. A Thief revival, just let those Metal Gear Solid dweebs know what they're missing. Master of Magic 2, if you played the first one you know why I'm putting this on the list, if not, go find it. A game designed by Miyazaki with help from his best friend Miyamoto. Every Elder Scrolls game ever made, Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion, all in one game. A first-person RPG for the Wii, everybody knows that the first time you looked at the Wiimote, you thought swordplay. Games that use a microphone. Eventually someone's going to make an RPG that does this, then everyone will. More Japanese games for the 360. Stop being a bunch of xenophobic dicks. Bully 2. Have you played Bully 1? Probably not. That's why they're not making it. A Final Fantasy VII remake, because not doing it at this point would pretty much be cruel towards its rabid fanbase. Maniac Mansion 3, because Day of the Tentacle is still one of the highest acclaimed video games of all time. A brand new LucasArts IP that has absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars. A music-based game that comes with a keyboard and actually teaches you how to read and play music. A Mario 64 remake. Who doesn't want to see this masterpiece revisited without technological limitations? A game designed by comedians from the ground up, potentially from people like Trey Parker and Matt Stone. A rogue-type RPG for console gamers. Even if it's Diablo 2, I don't care. Give us something. Dungeon Keeper 3. I really hope that the third time around can be the charm for this premise. A SimCity game based around giant robot combat. Come on, how cool would that be? Dead Rising 2, the greatest zombie game ever made, needs a sequel. Myth 4. Come on, don't let Myth 3 be the last in the series. It's too good to die like that. An MMO specifically designed for console gamers and not intended to be used with the keyboard and mouse. No More Heroes 2, because the first one was so drenched in style and everyone should have played it. Bushido Blade 3. How cool is a fighting game where you get to pick the character and their weapon while having realistic damage? A fighting game that doesn't have a life bar and allows you to break limbs similar to Bushido Blade, but hand-to-hand combat. Mouse-based games for the Wii. I think the PC development community needs to recognize a good market when they see one. Psychonauts 2. A good game with poor marketing is still a good game, even if the numbers don't back it up. Good video games designed for females, and not video games like Barbie's Pony Adventure. A MechWarrior revival. Something that actually focuses somewhere between action and strategy. A GTA-style Batman game where you just basically get to run around Gotham and do whatever the hell you want. A Superman game that lets you rise up to the stratosphere, look over the entire Earth, and then go anywhere you want to on it. A good DC game in general. They can't break out of this curse of theirs. DC, go talk to Capcom. A Marvel or DC universe offline, where I can basically make my characters and do what I want. Might and Magic 10. Don't let one of the greatest RPG IPs go to waste just because of a string of recent failures. A Castlevania game actually better than Symphony of the Night, preferably for download, so I can play it on my TV. A GTA-style zombie game. I think everyone thought that the first time they saw GTA 3. A War Games game, and by War Games, I'm referring towards the Matthew Broderick movie, if only through a Flash game. An XCOM remake. This game is widely believed to be the greatest strategy game ever made for good reason. A leisurely SimCity game for the Wii, and more like the SNES version, not the 2000. A Carmageddon revival. What's not to love about insane arcade action and cartoon-like ultra-violence? A good dating sim with RPG elements that a female could actually get into. A worldwide racing or GTA-style game that maps out the entire Earth. A Donkey Kong IP revival, because at this point it's getting hard to remember why Donkey Kong is so important. Shadow of the Colossus 2, a sequel to, hands down, one of the greatest games ever made. A Chicane remake. The premise is just too cool to let go. If you haven't played the original, you should. A rhythm-based RPG that utilizes the Guitar Hero guitar in which you slay foes with your rock music. More non-linear games. Developers do realize that non-linear is more than just a marketing buzzword, right? The original Syndicate remade because it was, and still is, 10 kinds of cool. An Incredible Machine-styled game featuring Mario using physics and various contraptions. A Sonic revival that can pull itself out of the flames that Sega put this IP into from a string of bad games. A Sonic racing game that doesn't involve jet skis, snowboards, karts, or rollerblades. It's Sonic. They don't need them. A really good Kyoji, or giant monster / robot game in which you can take down an entire city. Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, based off the book, not the movie, with power suits and everything. A decent platformer for both Microsoft and for Sony, because let's face it, Mario's kicking their ass, and it's not pretty. Pack-in titles from Microsoft and Sony. I think people are more willing to buy consoles when they know that they can play it straight out of the box. Classic PC games for the DS. It's basically a mouse-based system, so why not give us games you know we already love? A Privateer remake, or some other space-traveling, pirates and entrepreneurship-style game. A Magic Carpet revival, because no other game has come close to making such a beautiful combination of action and strategy. An Aliens vs Predator game that keeps both original IPs in its respective form. In other words, no Predaliens. Wasteland 3, because Fallout 3 is so insanely popular that EA would have to be stupid not to use this property. More video games that don't star an anti-hero in a dark and gritty world, and no, not a single Eastern European village either. More randomly generated games in general. Randomly generated games are good. Now let's see something in the way of RPG or FPS. A Psychic Force game that doesn't limit you to cubes and actually lets you throw your opponents through buildings. A Mugen style fighting game by Capcom, basically a fighting game where you can keep getting more and more stages and more characters. Another D&D game by Capcom, because Capcom was and still is the best IP handlers in town. Yojimbo, Seven Samurai, Ron, or some other equally cool Akira Kurosawa film. A You Don't Know Jack revival, because people need to know exactly how bad these other trivia games really are. A complete remake of the PSX Ghost in the Shell game. It's probably one of the best games no one's ever played. A new IP by Shigeru Miyamoto. We love your stuff, just please, give us something new already. A Tenchu revival. We have plenty of ninja games, now how about one about stealth? Half-Life Source. Someone started it, no one finished it. Someone please come along and do this. A second Densetsu for this generation of consoles. Come on, give us Secret of Mana 3 already. I miss playing co-op action RPGs. A disaster report game that's done right without any Hollywood kitsch, and is basically about trying to survive a nasty earthquake. LAN games that only require one disc to play across multiple systems. They used to do it, they stopped doing it. Why? Second Densetsu 3, or Secret of Mana 2, for WiiWare. How did this never get to our shores? An Alone in the Dark revival, and not this new edgy gritty one that's actually about Victorian Cthulhuism. Another Rocket Jock game in the Quake series, something similar to Quake 3 Arena. That was possibly one of the most perfect games ever made. A California Games remake, but only if they keep the cheap tacky 80s motif. A Kami 2, because shutting down Clover was a huge mistake in the first place. A Shining Force revival, to remind people where games like Final Fantasy Tactics come from. A Chrono Trigger remake with updated graphics and additional content. Star Fox 2 for WiiWare. Why, oh why, did Nintendo never release this game? A Fable game that gets it all right, that doesn't screw up the economy or the RPG engine. Masters of Orion 4, just because 3 suck doesn't mean you should give up on the brand. A tactical Rainbow Six S game in the Ghost in the Shell universe. How cool would that be? A completely abstract game that randomly generates itself through each play. A Tribes revival. It's about time people knew what a real tournament game was like. An Ocarina of Time remake so everyone can know why this is one of the greatest Zelda games ever made. Okay, tell you what, since No More Heroes 2 is officially still on its way out, I'll go ahead and give you one more. So I guess that would be 102 games that need to be made. And for my last one, I'd have to say Monster Rancher. Wow, why is it they can't just keep this game in its purest form?